Right, okay. Good morning, or should I say good evening for you over there, Amy. I'm joined by Amy Bradshaw for this episode of VT series. How you doing, Amy?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So what we'd like to start off with, for those who may not know you, is just a bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into the fitness industry.
So I'm originally from Preston in the UK, but I'm now living on the sunny coast in Australia. I pretty much flew out here at 21. I'd finished my degree and decided I wasn't ready for postgraduate study yet, so I booked a one-way flight and came over here. Before that, I'd gone on through like school, college, uni. So at school, GCSEP was one of my options, and that led me into a triple diploma in BTEC sport, which then led me into a Bachelor of Science degree at uni. And that was in strength and conditioning.
And where was that at? Was that at UCLan?
Yeah, that was at the Uni of Central Lancashire.
Okay. And is that where, you kind of found your passion for fitness? Because you're involved in fitness, obviously, over in Australia at the moment. But it's not S&C particular, is it? It's not team-based or anything like that at the moment.
No, so I was originally just interested in fitness, and then it's only when I actually got to uni and I'd got a little bit more experience in sort of like lifting, and it was actually through some work experience that I'd swapped degrees. So I started initially on a sports science degree. Okay. I gained a little bit of work experience, and that was where I decided that S&C was for me, because with the sports science degree, you cover all sorts of things. You cover like your biomechanics, your psychology, and some of those subjects weren't really for me. To the extent they were going into, like I wasn't really into all like psychological theories, and then I got my work experience and it honed in more on sort of like your lifting, your techniques, your planning, your like all your work that goes towards your gym sessions. And I was like, oh, this is definitely where I want to be. So it was actually after my first year I swapped over, and then I ended up finishing with a first class degree in strength and conditioning.
Right, okay, perfect. And over in Australia, did you go over there just for a gap year, or was it you did go over there to, you've been there nearly 2 years now, haven't you? And you're working.
Yeah, so I kind of always knew I wanted to be here. And I said when I left the UK, I probably wouldn't come back. But it did kind of solidify it. Initially, it did just start as I was running away from doing a master's and a bit of postgrad. And then the fitness opportunities out here are great, and I'm having such a ball, I'm just not ready to come home.
Yeah, definitely do want to delve into the scene over there in Australia. Especially where you are in Queensland, always nice and hot. Everyone's out on the paddock, aren't they? But can you just tell us a little bit more about where you are at the moment? So you're working at F45, aren't you? The sunny coast. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that come about? How did you get involved with them?
So F45 is now a global franchise, and it's based around team training. So it's groups of, at the minute we're capped at 20 because of everything that's going on with COVID, but up to 36 individuals that come and train in a group setting. And their logo is team training, life changing. So the idea is that by working as a team, you gain a lot more than just training on your own. And I originally got into this. So when I first came over to Australia, I'd done a little bit of traveling. And then I'd settled back in Sydney, and I was looking for sort of fitnessy jobs because obviously that was my background. And this had come up. So I'd gone online, I'd done a video interview, and I went into one of the studios in the centre of Sydney, did like a trial shift, all that kind of thing, and I got recruited. And then from there, I didn't actually really enjoy it at first when I was in the centre of Sydney, because I found a lot of the people were just day in, day out workers. Like no one really wanted to communicate. No one actually wanted to talk and have a conversation, which is what F45 is really about. Yeah. And then from there, I actually moved from the CBD to Bondi at the time. So I went to live in Bondi. And there's F45s all over Australia, as they are all over the world. So I just went into the Bondi Junction store and I just said, look, I've just moved over from the CBD. I'm not really liking the studio I'm at. Are you looking for any casuals, basically? And they were like, oh yeah, sure, come down, have a trial shift. So I had a trial shift, and I ended up moving over to the Bondi store. Okay. And then from there, I went over to do my farm work. So I wasn't involved in the fitness industry from there, but because I'd gained the work experience in an F45, it's kind of similar anywhere in the world. So you can just reapply that. And then when I'd done my farm work, I decided I wanted to come and live on the coast where I am now. And my job came up, and I literally just contacted the studio. It was actually via Facebook, and I just said, I'm looking to move to the area. I'm looking for a job. Have you got anything going for me? And then my owner at the time actually rang me on a Tuesday, did a phone interview, rang my manager in Bondi, and I flew up on the Friday, and then here I am.
The rest is history. Love
Yeah.
it. There's loads really there to delve into. I'll start with just, I know you talked about it's team training, life-changing. For those who don't know much about how the actual sessions works and how it's structured, can you just tell us a little bit more about F45, how the actual sessions go and the staff and how it runs, essentially?
Yeah. So F45 is never actually anything I'd experienced before in the UK. So the way it kind of works is you come into a studio, you've got a dozen tellies all the way around the wall. Some of them have got exercises on, some of them have got timings on, some of them tell you the directions you move in. The way it kind of works is you've got coaches like myself that run the session. So everyone comes in, they'll all take a seat at the back of the room. Your coaches will introduce the sessions. You'll give you an idea of what it is. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday are always your cardio days. Your Tuesday, your Thursday, your weights days, and your Sunday. And then a Saturday is like a hybrid. So it's a mixture of weights and cardio. So your coaches at the front will explain the session. This is what's going on today. This is your timing. This is your sets and reps, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll demonstrate the session. So we'll give you a quick demo of the exercise. So say it's, for example, a chest press. You'll just give your main pointers. So you're on a bench, you're at your 3-point contact, your upper body, your lower body, feet, where your dumbbells are going to go, how you want to position yourself. So just a really quick, brief overview of the exercise. Do that for every single one. Everyone jumps on the floor. You get your members warmed up. So you take a group warm up at the start. They delve off into their individual stations, sessions, and then you press the TV button. So that runs the timer, and then the timer takes over that. And then you just coach everyone through to direct them where they need to move and when, correcting any techniques, sort of encouraging, all that kind of thing. And then, so the timing's all done by F45, which is the same session that actually takes place everywhere in the world. The session we've done today will be the same session that goes on everywhere in the world at F45 today.
Right, cool.
And then at the end of the session, you do a little stretch and then you're off. So it's pretty much a 45-minute session. So that's why it's called functional 45. It's 45 minutes of functional training in which you come in. You don't really think about what you have to do because we do it all for you. You get told, you move, and you're done.
So just to pick up on a few of those, where you said that's the same session across the world today, which sounds mad really, doesn't it? It's proper cool. What is a franchise? So what elements of the franchise and each unit, each gym are just standardized, and what are individualized? So what do you do at Sunny Coast that the one at Bondi or the one at CBD don't do? Is there any flexibility where you can put your own spin on things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Member stuff or session wise? Yeah,
for sure. So for some sessions and some studios, for example, don't do cool down stretches. We specifically allocate an extra 10 or 15 minutes after every session to have a stretch. You're not required to. Warm-ups are a great example. So we get a generic warm-up that comes with the TV, but a lot of the time we stand in the front, we just let the warm-up time it for us and we do our own. So when I worked in the CBD, it was pretty much follow the screens, blah, blah, blah. When it was in Bondi, it was follow the screens and one of you will do it at the front. And then the one we now do on the Sunny Coast, which is only since I started over here, you kind of just do your own warm-up. You take elements of it because of the sort of like 15, 20 second sort of periods of which you do certain things. So say like star jumps into then like high knees and all that kind of thing. But if you want to change it and you want to make it more specific, say one of your stations is lateral lunges, you want to get into your hips a little bit more, you've got the option there to sort of do that. With regards to it being standardised, all F45s have got the same equipment, they've all got the same layout. So for example, when I set up my session for tomorrow that I've just done tonight, stations 10 and 11 for tomorrow require a chin-up bar. So the way your studio will be set up is so that every studio can have stations 10 and 11 set up as standard to the script basically. So when your studio's made and it's built and all that kind of thing, it's done so you can do it like that, so you don't have to change the exercises. Yeah, I can imagine from a business sense that's really efficient. As you said, everything's standard in terms of the positioning and the equipment, etc. It's all branded F45 equipment. Yeah. So, what sort of clients do you get that come to F45? So we very much get like a mixture of everyone. There really isn't a particular type of client. So F45 is great in the sense that we have one of the policies of F45 is no mirrors. So the idea is that you come in, you drop the ego, you just get it all done. Like you don't really care. We don't care what you look like. Just come in, get it done, have fun, work out. So we've got no mirrors. So we really get a range of people coming in. We get people that come in who just want to do weights days, people that want to do cardio days. And F45 are actually renowned for their challenges. So every sort of, I think we have about 4 or 5 a year, usually across different quarters or different phases. And you can genuinely win a prize at the end. So at Christmas, for example, our biggest loser lost 28 kilos and he won himself a brand new polo.
Jesus, 28
kilos. So
a
lot of people come in for like that quick kind of fix, but then they fall in love with the way the training is because it's a group environment. You make friends, like it's dead chatty, and you just kind of have fun. Like it is a serious way to train. Like obviously you can really get a sweat on and you can really work hard and you can really achieve what you want to achieve, like goal wise. But you can also just make loads of friends, like come in, just be social. It's lovely. It's really great.
Do you, just as a bit of a side question, do you do any member stuff like outside the gym together? You know, is that a policy?
As in like socials?
Like socials, or do anything other than just the classes, or?
Yeah, so there's always an end of challenge social, and then the majority of the people I've met in Australia, I've met through F45, whether they've been previous clients or previous members or whatever. Like one of my best friends I worked with in Bondi, and we've been pretty much best friends ever since. I spent Christmas with her and her family, so you meet people that way. Yeah. But there's always a social at the end of every challenge. We try to do, if there's a challenge going on, we try to do a halfway social as well. So just to obviously do something on a weekend that doesn't involve like drinking or going out and eating. We try to do something active. So we always do try to get little bits in there. Today, for example, was a little bit of fun. Today was Jersey Day. So we had a session today called Quarterbacks, which is based on AFL and NFL training, so like footy type training. So the idea today was we got everyone to wear the jerseys. So we've always got little quirky things like that go on. So it is dead nice. Definitely a community that you build. That's one thing I said when you came to the Sunny Coast. Like the community there was so different to the one in the Sydney CBD.
I keep picking your brains on this just because obviously it is really interesting. Before we move on though, just a couple more on F45. In terms of, as you know, as a trainer, fitness instructor, personal trainer, coach, whoever works for F45, how are you supported? So is it a standardized, everyone gets the same sort of, you know, CPD? Do you have to do training, you know, a certain amount of times of the year? Or are you self-employed? Are you employed by F45 directly? Are you an employee? How does that work?
So we're technically classed as casual, but we're treated as if we're full-time employees. Casual's quite like it's not the same as it is in the UK. So casual, you've still got like your working rights here, but you're under a contract, but you're not technically contracted. Yeah. So you can say no to things like hours and time off a little bit more freely, like that kind of thing. So it's like a full-time employment, but it's just a little less strict, basically. And so we do get continued professional development. We have like courses we have to go to through F45 that like us to go down to. I think before COVID, there was meant to be one in Brizzy we were all meant to go to on a Friday, but obviously we couldn't get to that. We constantly have, as the phase changes and we have different sessions that come up because they've all got different names, we have to do online modules as part of our development. So we're aware of the sessions, we know the basics, like your timings, your exercises, what you're trying to achieve. So we always have modules we have to do for that. And then other than that, it's just ensuring your first aid's maintained. That's pretty much the basic you've got to do yourself.
Cool. And how have your clients, yourself and the gym, how have you coped during lockdown, and what kind of, because I know it's not been as, as documented in terms of the cases, especially in Queensland, it's not been as bad as it in terms of...
Yeah, for sure. So to put it into a little bit of perspective, Queensland's had 6 deaths.
Yeah, okay.
From coronavirus. And we've had 1,050 something cases in total. And you think Queensland's the size of a good chunk of Europe. But we, as Australia, we shut it down pretty quick. So as everything was just starting to develop and cases were coming over, Australia shut the borders. They had a rule, if you're coming from overseas, you got to do a 14-day quarantine. And they just pretty much shut everything off very, very quickly, which was really good because it stopped the virus spreading. So as we were as a gym, we didn't really get a heads up, but everyone knew it was kind of coming because of like the way the cases were developing. So we, as a studio, had a contingency plan meeting basically and said, if this happens, what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And we decided we were going to go online. So we did Zoom classes. We did our sessions via Zoom. And we'd coach them in the studio, and we also leased out equipment to certain members. So members that were wanting to still pay their full membership, they were able to come in and get some basic equipment. So we gave out like booty bands, skipping ropes, kettlebells, and a set of dumbbells. So then when we were doing the lives, we were able to encourage them to try and use them as well. So we did that for, I think it was 8 weeks in total. I think that's all we had to do. And then we were able to move outside to boot camps, so which we continued boot camps as well as the Zooms. And then after 10 weeks, we were back in the studio. We started back in the studio on June the 3rd.
Yeah. And how did that feel for members? Did you get a high retention rate, or did you know some people drop off, or how did it go?
So I think it was about 50-50. I remember when the first announcement came out, I was working the shift in the morning on the Monday because we had to shut at lunchtime. And then I had a quick glance over the emails, and we had 50 emails, and everyone's like, oh, I just want to cancel my membership, And we were like, whoa, calm down. You don't need to cancel your membership. We're working something out. So we sort of emailed everyone back and said, we'll suspend for as long as we have to. We're going to get a plan. Once we get a plan, you're welcome to come back to us. So we offer different membership options because F45 globally sort of went online. So you could do your basic sessions online, which you just had to put a computer up and just follow the screen, or you were able to do it with your coaches on like Zooms. So there was different scales in which you did that. So some people just chose to do the $10 a week, which was the computer one. Some people chose to do the 25 a week, which was with your coaches. And then some people chose to have the full membership and take equipment as well. So I think roughly it was about 50% of people that stayed, 50% suspended. And I think we've got roughly about 75% back now, even though we're capped at capacity. And so our restrictions lift fully on, I think it's the 10th of July, in which we've just got to be 4 square meters apart, which our studio can hold. So we'll go back to, I think we're starting off at 27 just to ease into it, and then 36. Okay. It is also worth mentioning, while we're open at the minute, we've got buckets situated throughout the room. I think we've got 6 or 7 buckets with antiseptic sprays and cloths, in which we make our members carry around and wipe down their equipment as they finish training.
Okay, love it. Really interesting. I think what we'll do is we'll clip all of that for you, and we'll send that off to F45, and you'll get a job being the promo for them. You've done a great job of promoting them. No, it's good, mate. You've nice one, Amy. I know everything about the company now and how it runs, and loads of information there for anyone who didn't really know about it and how the sessions run. And as I said before we started this, there are a number of them popping up now, especially in the Northwest. There's 2 in Manchester now. Yeah,
because there wasn't when I first came out here. There wasn't. The only one there was Brixton. Which is obviously down in London. So for them to actually head up north to Manchester is pretty good. I imagine Liverpool wouldn't be too far off. But they're all over the world. Like, they've got ones popping up in India, because if you follow the F45 training page on Instagram, the guy who we have on all the screens, he's called Corey G. He goes over and does all the promos for the studios that are opening. And you could see him and this other guy called Pistol Pete.
Pistol Pete.
Just walking all the way through India and going and introducing himself to the locals and just trying to promote their studio, and it's pretty wild. Like, it's good. It's really interesting to see.
That's sick. But yeah, definitely, I appreciate that. There's loads of information on F45. Just in general, from living over there a couple of years. Obviously, I lived there for a year too, so I do know the scene a little bit. But it was a few years ago now when I was there, so that may get a bit older. What's the scene like at the moment in Australia? Because it always does seem a little bit ahead of the UK in terms of training and stuff like that at the moment, in terms of community-based exercise. What's the scene like at the moment?
With regards to it being Australia, I couldn't believe how big it actually is compared to the UK. I don't know whether that's because we've got the weather over here and everyone buys into it a little bit more, maybe because you've got to spend more time with your skin out. I don't know. Yeah. But obviously, with the days being lighter, people train so much earlier. So our busiest classes are 4:55 a.m. and 5:45 a.m.
Wow.
So I start work at 4:45 a.m. most mornings. But in that time, they're our 2 busiest classes. They're pumping. As soon as the sun's up, you've pretty much got people out walking. So fitness is so big over here, and something people are so keen on. And it is, like you say, we are just ahead of everyone else. Like, I don't feel when I was back in the UK, team training was really a thing. I feel like you just had your exercise classes, like your Les Mills, your spinning, all that kind of thing. And it wasn't necessarily like a group environment, a group of people doing different things. But I think maybe post-COVID that might possibly kick off, because I know people have had to do outdoor boot camps and all that kind of thing. So if it encourages people to train that way, that would be great, because I personally think it is a totally different way of training with regards to just being in a class with someone, everyone doing the same thing. No one's really pushing each other than like the person at the front. Yeah. Have a room full of people and different people doing different things is great.
Certainly, I think for people and in England at the moment, especially the UK, is moving to a lot of people are going to small group training, and want to go into like small meetings, different stations. So yeah, it's kind of taken the lead, I guess, from Australia in the last few years. So in terms of yourself over there, Amy, because I know I want to speak to you a little bit about your roles prior to going to Australia, about your experience in SNC and some of the professional sports clubs you work with. But before we move on to that, kind of where do you see yourself in Australia the next couple of years? Is it something that you want to continue doing at F45? You know, is that what you see yourself moving into in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to stay with F45 as a company. I'd ideally like to build up to a management role and get sponsored through a management role that way. Just short term, because I think F45, their managers and the staff are genuinely quite young. So I'm 23 at the minute, and my manager's, I think she's 28, and she's been managing for 5 years. So the managers and the teams do tend to be quite young. So that's something I'd like to do maybe for a short period of time, just to build up more of a relationship with people and the option to just train and just employ my skills like that. Because I'm like a bit of a reader. Like I like to continue learning, so I'll keep reading articles and still apply my S&C background to my training, whether that be athletes or just like your regular people. So over the next 5 years, that is something I'd like to achieve. But then longer term, I would like to progress to S&C. So over the next couple of years, I'd like to study again. I'd like to study a little bit more. Just keep going where I can, and hopefully S&C opportunities will present themselves. Like people, and it's more a case of where you know, of like who you know. Like I know a couple of people out here who have got contacts, and just speaking to people like that. Like one of my girlfriends, for example, she coaches the local, well, not the local, but the Sunshine Coast Lightning, which is like the netball team for the area. So I've said to her, like, oh, can I just come and have a nosy at your S&C sessions, like have a look at your setup, that kind of thing. So your own proactive, continued CBD. And just go from there. You kind of just got to be proactive with it. But I would like to hopefully manage F45, get a sponsorship over here, and then I would like to go back to S&C sort of later down the line. But it is definitely the goal ultimately as an S&C coach. That isn't forgotten.
Love it. So as I kind of touched upon, before you went over to Oz and talked about the S&C experience there, you did some work with, there were placements, weren't there, at university?
They weren't placements, they were internships. So they weren't part of my course, they were just something I the uni offered it, and it was just something I did on the side. It didn't go towards anything, it was just something I did for my development. And
can you tell us a little bit more about those, the internships themselves, and you know how you found it? So sure. So go on. Was the first one at Wigan, and then Fleetwood?
Yeah, the first one was with Wigan Warriors. That was advertised through uni, like come up on your emails, that kind of thing. And I was studying sports science at the time, so I was a bit reluctant. But I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, it's an opportunity. I'm just going to apply. The worst that happens is you get told no. So I ended up applying, and then I went for an interview just to try and get to know the staff, and it was good. It went pretty well, and then I was offered that placement at an internship. So that was with their strength and conditioning coach, Paul Johnson. So I worked pretty closely with him. Internship started just your general days, coming in, getting to know the club, getting to know the people, and then my role then was to sort of shadow. Learn the basics of an S&C role within a club, try and watch a little bit of programming. I also did a little bit on like the nutrition side as well. Then that was a year long. That was offered to me for the season. So I took that for the season. And then at the end of the first season, I kind of didn't feel I'd come out my shell enough. I felt I was still a little bit shy, and I was just beginning to get to know, because I mean, it's pretty daunting being a female in a big group of lads. I kind of feel like I was getting to know the boys a little bit better. They were taking to me quite well, because I was the first S&C intern that was a female that they'd ever had. It was kind of then I was coming out my shell. I was getting a bit more comfortable, and I just pushed my luck basically. And I just said, look, is there any chance I could have another year? Like, I feel I've got a bit more to develop, and I feel I've got a little bit more I can give. Like, I'm more comfortable now. Like, I just want to see where it goes. And they ummed and ahed about it and said yes, which was obviously lucky for me. So I got a second year, and then came to the end of that season, and it was towards the end of that season actually that the S&C coach was working. He was doing his master's degree, and as part of his degree, they had to do sessions and go and look at another professional club. And in that time, Yul Mawani from Fleetwood Town came in on the day I was working, luckily enough. And I got chatting to him, and I just said, look, I'm looking to expand. I'd like to see a different sport. Is there any chance, like, again, pushing my luck, I was like, is there any chance I could possibly have an internship with Fleetwood for a year? And he was like, and he eventually got back to me, and he was like, yeah, we'll have you for a season. So I then went to Fleetwood for my last year at uni. So I did 2 years with Wigan and a year with Fleetwood Town.
No, it's meant. It's you know, the old saying, you don't ask, you don't get, do you? And I think that's, you've got to be proactive, like you said earlier. It's a massive thing, isn't it? Asking, and what's the worst that can happen? They say, no, we've not got any space. We've not lost anything.
Exactly.
But experience there, as you said, you know, it could be quite daunting. First female to go and help out Wigan, especially because it was the first team, wasn't it? You're helping out the first team at Wigan, which, you know, was a professional rugby league team, probably the most famous in the country. Large testosterone-filled blokes from north of England mostly. How was that experience for you? You know, in terms of that support staff, how did you find that experience being a female there?
So like I said, at first it was a little bit daunting, but I think that's like totally natural. Like you put in an uncomfortable situation, and I was like I say, I was a little bit younger at the time. I would have probably just turned 19. So you like, if you've never been in that situation before, you don't really know how to handle yourself. So it is definitely a learning curve, which is good. The staff were great. Like, they really looked after me. There was the head of performance, Mark Bitkin, who was absolutely great. He really supported me. He helped me quite a lot. He was sort of like my go-to. Like, I was a little bit scared of the head coach at first. Like, he honestly scared me. It was really, really lovely. You kind of just got to, like I say, get talking.
Was it Sean White? Was it Sean White?
Yeah, it was Sean White. But like, he's lovely. He's a great bloke, and you've kind of just got to, you've got to have thick skin. So you've got to prepare yourself. Like, you've got to take the banter. You've got to just handle yourself well. And then when you kind of get your head around that, like, it's all good to go. Like, I still chat to Wayne now, and I still shoot the other ones a message and just check in on how they're going and all that kind of thing. And it is, once you've got that support network and you've established your connections, you really can grow. My best advice really is to just put yourself out there. Like, suss the situations out, take your time, learn how different people are. Like, you know, someone, if for the head coach, for example, because we all shared an office, he comes in and he's not in the best of moods, you keep your distance. Do you know what I mean? You just got to suss the situation and gauge it.
And how did you find, like, you know, you were supporting Paul Johnson in terms of the S&C and Mike Bitcombe and that. How did you find, if you were ever put in situations where you'd go and do a bit of one-to-one with a group of players, you know, in the gym, or, you know, a bit of skill acquisition or whatever, a bit of conditioning? How did you find that process, and what sort of reaction did you get from the players? Was it a little bit tentative, or, you know, a lot of respect, or how did you find that?
So before I was put into those individual situations, I'd help out in the gym in the group. So you tend to do, like, your forwards and your backs would have a session, and then your injured boys would go after, or they'd go out while the lads are on the field. So you can't, like, I used to do a bit of spotting for the bench, a bench press of all things, really. So you've kind of just, like, you've just got to help. And then when they see you helping out, they've obviously got quite a lot of respect for you, because you're putting yourself in that situation. You're there to help them. You're not just there to stand around and look pretty, basically. So, like, when they see you helping, they're a lot more inclined to ask you things and to get chatting to you. And when you are on that one-on-one basis, they will talk to you a little bit more. But it's kind of, you've got to put yourself out there and talk to them. So even though they'll see you around the gym, and say you stood there in the morning, for example, you've all just come in, you're waiting for your brekkie, your coffees or whatever, just, like, build up a conversation with them, because that's how you're going to build your rapport, rather than just standing there and assuming they're going to talk to you. Like I say, you just got to put yourself out there. And then when they see you helping, they're quite all right with it. Like, they'll ask you for help. They'll want to know more. They'll even just get chatting to you while they do the rehab, because a lot of the time they're on their own. So it's just communication, basically. Okay,
so very similar to, you know, general PTing and things like that. You've just got to build that trust, haven't you, I guess, you know, before they come to you for some help. How did you find that then compared to going to Fleetwood? Obviously a different sport, you know, different probably types of characters, and I don't know how the facilities maybe were different, etc. But how did you find that transition?
It was totally different, to be honest with you. Your setup's always going to be the same. Like, you're always going to have You get in the morning, you all sort of like mingle, you'll have your breakfast, you'll have a session, you'll have your lunch, you'll all do a different type of session. The way it tends to work is you'll have your weights in the morning and your field sessions in the afternoon, or sort of like later morning. So the way it worked at Fleetwood was the boys would do like their gym work, and I was actually doing my dissertation on foam rolling at the time, and one of the rollers I was using the boys had. So I was chatting to them quite a bit, like a little bit about foam rolling, trying to encourage recovery. The S&C is obviously totally different there because they're not running into blokes like they are in rugby. So it's more injury prevention there than actual strength and conditioning. So a lot of the stuff I did at Fleetwood was more sports sciencey. That was like your GPS, your analysis. Like I was on the computer, I was doing my data analysis, that kind of thing. So I did learn a lot from that. And like I say, S&C in football is totally different to rugby. So I know if I wanted a more hands-on, sport-specific, like gym session, and that wanted to be my day-to-day, you're looking at rugby. If you're looking for a little bit more injury prevention and more, a little bit finer tuning in details, you're looking at something like football where they're not running into each other and smashing each other.
Yeah, okay. What was it like, the characters and the personalities and stuff between the clubs? As you said, it's very similar set where you go and have a mingle, have a bit of a coffee and stuff before you start the day. But was there any differences in terms of how they treated you or they treated the staff or anything like that? Or was it very similar?
No, so it was very respectful in both situations. I mean, boys are going to be boys. They're always going to fly banter around and all that kind of thing. In rugby, it was a lot more relaxed, I feel. I said when I first went to football, I felt like they were not a little bit more egotistical, but they definitely thought a little bit higher of themselves. Because they wouldn't care for you, basically. Like you'd be stood in your brekkie hole and you'd just be like, they honestly wouldn't care.
Yeah.
The female in the room, they're not too bothered. I mean, the rugby lads would be a bit like, whoa, but then the footy boys just weren't bothered.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there was respect on both ends regardless. You're coming in, you're attempting to be a member of staff, you're better in them. So there's always that level of respect. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just the way they thought of themselves, whether the footballers thought a little bit more highly of themselves or what, I don't know. But the boys didn't tend to bother with me too much at Fleetwood. Like the boys, they'd walk past and they'd say hi. But like the rugby boys would ask me how my weekend was, what I'd be doing, like what's going on, where my uni work's at. The Fleetwood boys would just say hi.
Okay. And what were the staff like at Fleetwood? I know you mentioned about the Wigan staff in terms of Paul Johnson and Bitcom being supportive. Were they good at Fleetwood too? Were they really helpful? Yeah,
they were. Yul was amazing to work under. He's so knowledgeable. Like he really knows his stuff. So he was great to learn from. And their S&C coach / skill coach is Jimmy Barrow. Okay. He's also very knowledgeable, both studying to do the master's degrees. So yeah, just great to be around, very professional. Didn't really interact with the manager too much at Fleetwood, sort of kept himself to himself. I mean, I seen him at breakfast, sat and I'd like have dinner or lunch with him and they'd say hi. But yeah, just so supportive. And as a female, you really appreciate that kind of thing. It wasn't a case of go and make me a cup of tea. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
it wasn't that whatsoever. So that's huge.
I should hope not, to be honest. The 70s, is it? We'd be struggling if that was still happening. But in terms of that, I know you said that your own ambitions in terms of F45 and then potentially go into some S&C in the future. You know, try and poke out a few opportunities over in Oz. Is that something that you want to do in terms of, is it football, netball that you said, rugby? Have you kind of decided an avenue that you want to go down, or is it you just want to sample it until you kind of feel it out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anywhere specific sport-wise I'd like to go. I mean, obviously rugby's so big over here, so that would be the dream, but so is AFL. Subject to where you are in the country, obviously different sports are bigger. Aussie rules football is very, very quick. So that's like a combination of football and rugby together. But to be honest, anywhere I could get an opportunity, I'd take, and then I'd just build and build and build. Like, I don't feel so young where I'm in a position to be picky. Like, I've not got people jumping at my doorstep and banging on my door and being like, oh my God, we want to employ you, blah, blah, blah. So you've kind of just got to be humble with what you can get. And then as you start to get a feeling, you start to get more experience, then you can start to be a little bit picky when you've got something different you can give.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. You've got the Sunshine Coast, is it Falcons? The rugby league team over there, you got that? Yeah, no, there's Sunny Coast Falcons, yeah. they're going all right, I think, out of this year, Q Cup or last year.
Oh, I mean, their season's been cancelled because of the COVID thing, but they weren't doing too bad. They're actually the feeder club for the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
A lot of the boys that play for the Sunny Coast Falcons get filtered into the Melbourne Storm because their head recruiter lives on the Sunny Coast. He's actually a friend of mine. So they friends in high place.
Yeah, opportunity.
So a lot of their players get recruited to the Storm because, for example, one of their lads who made the debut, or the debut as they call it over here, he played for the Falcons, and he was 27 and he made his NRL debut. So you're never too old.
It's good. There's a few good teams over there in the Q Cup and all that. All right, Amy, you've give us loads of info there, mate. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. The last thing then really is just 3 bits of advice that you'd give someone wanting to get into the industry at the moment, the fitness industry. And then also, I know we touched on it a little bit there about S&C, but, bits of advice of, young women wanting to get into S&C in terms of, like yourself, that you were going to university, what sort of things should they be doing? I know you've touched on a little bit, but could we just develop that a little bit more?
Yeah. So general advice for anyone would be, do your qualifications properly. Don't just go and do your weekend course or your online course or whatever and think, oh, I'm a PT after 3 days, because that's not really the way it works. Like, you need your hands-on experience, you need your real life experience, you need to develop that. And the more people you have around you to help with that, the better it is. I mean, I was very lucky. I did it as part of my degree and I was able to qualify my fitness qualifications through my degree because one of my lecturers had organised that. But I got my work experience from being hands-on as part of my degree. So if I hadn't had that and I'd been thrown into the real world, I wouldn't really know what to do, because it's not the same as like doing your mum session in the gym. Like, you're interacting with real people, you're interacting with people who've got different problems, and you've got to keep learning. Another bit of advice would definitely be keep learning, like I say, but also make yourself different. So read all the articles, read into different things. If you've got a client, let's say, that's got a knee problem, read into those knee problems, find out what it is, read articles, like get to know a bit of background, make yourself different, because any PT can be like, oh, I've got a sore knee, okay, well, don't do lunges. You've got to make yourself different. You've got to offer those alternatives. You've got to keep learning and developing yourself to be able to offer things like that and ultimately make yourself different to the person that's stood next to you on the board. And then for anyone really, females in particular, it would be just put yourself out there. The worst that can happen is someone is going to say no to you. It's really not the end of the world. Like, maybe it'll upset you for a day, but you've got to have thick skin. You've got to put yourself out there. If you don't put yourself out there and you don't ask for your opportunities, they're never going to come to you. Opportunities won't come running to you. You're going to have to try and find them, and you're going to have to present yourself to them and say, here I am, kind of thing.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate that, Amy. There's some lovely bits of advice there, especially about the education and, continuing to learn. It's obviously, a lot of people do say that when we ask. It's massive. You just got to keep learning, haven't you?
Yeah, sure. Like, everyone says you learn on the job, which is true. Yeah. But it's the background knowledge. A lot of PTs, I reckon actually 50% of PTs, the most successful ones will be the ones that go home, do a little bit of research, do a bit of reading. They know what's coming up. They know what's going on in the world. They know how things are developing and making things more important and more personalised for the clients, rather than the ones that give the same session to every single client they've got all week.
And where do you find your bits of info at the moment? Obviously, you talk about journals, articles. Do you still tap into any specific sources or any platforms or, authors, etc.?
Just places I tended to find my uni work. So I can even go like back online onto the uni portal and just search for articles. Or even if you're interested in anything, say, for example, patella pain, which is obviously your knee, just search patella pain journals, and you've got a list of general journals that will come up. Podcasts are also great. You can actually get a lot of reference podcasts nowadays. And I follow a site on Instagram. I'm not too sure what it is, but they tend to do so, once you've done a journal and you can like present it as like a picture, as like a poster. They're great because they constantly come up with the new things that are going on, and it summarises it all really well for you without having to read the full journal. So there are ways to do it. So I can be scrolling through my Instagram and I can see something from work, and then I can see something sports specific from them, which is great. So it doesn't have to necessarily be sitting and reading the textbook. There are different ways, and obviously technology advancing, there's different ways to be able to find these kind of things.
Okay. Yeah, there's plenty, isn't there, on Instagram, and and Facebook and Twitter and everything. You know, a lot of people. Twitter's a great one, to be fair, in terms of academics and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of them are chucking their data and results on there.
And even places on LinkedIn that you're interested in, like your strength and conditioning associations, your personal training associations, your government bodies, that kind of thing. They're always posting articles.
Okay.
So they're great.
No, it's great. Thanks, Amy. I think we'll round up there, but I really do appreciate your time. Like I said, some great bits of information there. Great to hear about your experiences in terms of the professional clubs over in England and what you're doing at the moment at F45 on the sunny coast. All right, I'll catch you soon, Amy.
No worries. See you later.
All right.
Bye.